Chapter 5, Containment. The next morning, Troy walked over to the storage depot again to check on the baby dinosaur and Kelly. He found her working with the Tyrannosaur inside a large cage that Mike McKelvey had constructed according to her estimation of the creature's eventual size and strength. The cage stood 30 feet high by 80 feet long, made of the same chain link fence material that had been used to build the sled dog compound, but double reinforced and electrified. The prefab metal door was strewn with fresh straw, also from the dog compound. The long table where the glass case sat the day before had been moved inside the cage. It now held only electrical monitoring devices and feeding trays. The Tyrannosaur paced up and down the length of the table, clawed feet clicking against metal electrode patches with trailing wires attached to its scaly skin, making it look like a monster walking on a treadmill. It now stood over a foot high, having almost doubled in height since the morning of the day before. "Permission to come inside?" Troy asked. Kelly glanced from her work, not especially happy to see him just then. "The door's unlocked, but close it behind you." He stepped inside the cage and came over to the table. "Don't you have some work of your own to do, Darrow?" "Not really. Tarosh has suspended all exploration until further notice because of your little pet there, and because of Burke's unaliving, quote unquote." "Keep your voice down," she said, nodding at the shadows near the cage where Horst Zalman stood silent guard duty. Troy shrugged, and he shrugged. His spies can tell him whatever they want. He knows what I think of him, shooting Burke down like a dog. "So what are you supposed to be doing, now that you can't hunt for places to dump your radioactive waste?" "We've all been assigned busy work of one kind or another. I'm supposed to help Jack feed the sled dogs. But I've also got this little project of my own." "What?" He leaned in close to her and lowered his voice, trying to find a way out of this concentration camp. "That shouldn't be too easy," she said, her own voice low. "Unless you can steal the helicopter and learn how to fly it." "I can't, but there's got to be another way. When I'll find it, I'll let you know." The Tyrannosaur opened its mouth and hissed at him. The teeth and jaws looked much larger than they had the day before. Troy stepped back. "Doesn't like anyone getting too close to me." "Damn it! Troy, that is Kelly's line! Stay in your lane, you bastard!" "He doesn't like anyone getting too close to me," Kelly said. "He's growing like a weed, isn't he?" "Yes, all the goddamn radiation they've exposing him to." "Are the containers leaking in here?" "No, I checked. They don't seem to be. I checked out some more of them earlier this morning with a Geiger counter. But the table and the glass case are hot as firecrackers. Ferocious men must be sneaking the radiation waste in at night." "Has it caused any side effects?" Troy asked. "Other than accelerating his maturation like crazy, no." "What are the wires for?" "To measure blood pressure, respiration, heartbeat." "So, are dinosaurs really warm-blooded?" "Yes. They also have a much higher metabolic rate than we find in most living mammals, about the same rate as birds, which is pretty much what the newer studies assumed." "How does it feel to be the first to examine a live one?" She looked up at him and smiled. "Great." The Tyrannosaur closed its eyes and rubbed its snout against her hand in a kind of nuzzling motion. "Hey," Troy said, "I think he likes you." "Maybe." Kelly stroked the creature's bony head. "But it's not like playing with a puppy or a kitten. Even though he's warm-blooded, he's still an alien life form to mammals like us. We may think we understand him, but we don't. I keep trying to tell myself that, and still I find myself bonding with him." "Who's feeding him now? Not Pete Mendoza, I'll bet." "Don Bradshaw, that young geology grad student." "Is the T-Rex eating twice as much? He's twice as big." "More than twice as much," she frowned. "That part worries me too. This animal's a hunter. He's genetically programmed to track down his food in the wild and take it live. It won't be safe to keep feeding him by hand as he grows larger." Instinctively, she took her own hand away from the small tyrannosaur, who went back to pacing up and down the table. How much bigger will he get anyway? A lot. At full adult maturity, he should stand about 19 feet high and weigh about 6 to 8 tons. That's one big dinosaur. When will he reach maturity? With all this random radioactive exposure, who knows? Well, at least your cage should hold him. I hope so. If you throw over that switch over there, a current of 10,000 volts runs through the chain link material. Thanks for telling me that before I open the door. It's not turned on now, but I don't know if it's going to hold him when he reaches full size. Suppose it doesn't. Kelly looked at the Tyrannosaur as it paced back and forth. If it doesn't, she said, then someone's going to die. The first death occurred almost a week later. Kelly stood outside the cage, entering data into a laptop computer as Don Bradshaw approached carrying a platter piled high with bloody seal meat. He set it down near the cage door with a stifled groan. This gets heavier each time I feed him. Have to start bringing it in on a forklift. Power off to the cage? Yes, Kelly said. Bradshaw smiled ruefully as he arranged the seal meat. Not only does this crap get heavier, it gets harder to walk it by the sled dogs. Huskies go crazy when they smell all that fresh blood, and those things can bite, you know. So can he, Kelly said, nodding to the Tyrannosaur, almost 6 feet high now, standing pressed against the inside of the cage door, pale eyes staring intently at the platter of seal meat and at the young man crouched beside it. Bradshaw stood up to open the cage door and hesitated. Gotten awfully big awful fast, hasn't he? He's only reached about a third of his full adult height, Kelly said, but he's big enough to do serious damage. Please be careful, Don. I don't know if I like the way he's crowding that door. Then don't open it. Tell Tarosh you need someone else to help you feed him. Not much chance of that. He asked to eat, Kelly. I'll just wait until he moves back from the door. Bradshaw crossed his arms and waited. The Tyrannosaur stood behind the cage door like a statue for almost 5 minutes before moving back to the far side of the cage, where it continued to stare at the food and the human feeder. It held its large head cocked slightly sideways, like a bird's. See? Let him get hungry enough. He'll cooperate. Bradshaw opened the cage door partway and lifted the heavy platter, muscling it in through the narrow opening. The Tyrannosaur stood on the far side of the cage, motionless except for a sudden twitching of its tail. One hand bracing the platter against his thigh, Bradshaw reached back with the other and closed the cage door behind him. I know you're hungry, boy, but here it is. All you have to do is come. A roar shattered the stillness of the storage depot, louder and more savage than anything Kelly would have thought the Tyrannosaur capable of at this stage of development. She looked up from her laptop in confusion, then horror, then started screaming. Troy was in the map room, examining navigation charts to see if there was any chance of escaping from Deep Core Station by boat and crossing the Bransfield Strait to King George Island. Paul West came into the room, a grim look on his face. Well, it finally happened. What? That thing attacked Don Bradshaw. Troy got up from his chair. When? Just now, a few minutes ago, at the storage depot. How bad is he hurt? Pretty goddamn bad from what I hear. Is Kelly okay? Far as Hey, where do you think you're going? To see for myself. Tarosh isn't letting anyone inside. The hell with Tarosh. When Troy reached the front door to the storage depot, he found it blocked by Eric Agnor. Get back to work, Agnor said. Nothing to see here. I helped find the egg. I want to check on my baby. Get lost, Darrow, before you piss me off, okay? The door opened behind Agnor. Zalman poked his head out. Let him in. Says who? Tarosh. A small crowd had gathered before the Tyrannosaur's cage. The creature, standing erect, stunted forearms held out in front, watched them through the electrified chain fence, tail twitching slowly, jaws smeared with blood. The straw on the cage floor was streaked with blood. large splashes of it, dark red and drying beneath the overhead lights. Kelly's own face was flecked with blood as she stared at Bradshaw's body outside the cage where Dave Richter, the camp medic, leaned over to examine it. Troy came up to her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "You sure? There's blood on your face." She reached up and touched the blood with her hand, and stared at it as if disoriented. "I was so close to the cage." "How did it happen?" "Don was feeding him the way he usually does, putting down the tray of fresh seal meat, then stepping back. But this time, the Tyrannosaur went after Don instead of this seal meat." Kelly closed her eyes. Troy looked down at Bradshaw's body. Most of the flesh had been ripped off from his face, leaving a grinning skull in its place, with twitching muscles and one lidless eye staring up at the overhead lights. His right arm had been torn off above the elbow, his torso slashed open from chest to crotch. His intestines lay piled in glistening ropes beside his body. "How long did it take to do all that?" Troy asked. "Seconds. He was over before it started. I've never seen an animal move that fast in my life, ever." "What kept him from finishing the job?" "Tarosh's men." Kelly looked at Zalman, who stood near the cage, Makarov automatic in one hand. "They fired into the cage. I don't know if they wounded him. They haven't let me check, but it scared him for a few minutes, and he drew back into the corner. That gave them time to run and drag Don's body out of the cage. Right after they locked the door, he threw himself against the cage. The high voltage shocked the hell out of him and drove him back, but he kept throwing himself at the fence again and again." She started to cry. "We gotta get him out of here." "We will." Troy slipped an arm around her, somehow. She was crying so hard, she didn't notice. But the Tyrannosaur did. The creature let out a roar then, louder than any sound Troy had ever heard it make before. It charged at the spot where he stood with his arm around Kelly. But for the electrified chain-link fence, the almost 6-foot-high Tyrannosaur would have been on top of them. Instead, it hit the fence, bouncing back in a shower of blue sparks. The men near the cage drew back with cries of alarm. "Ah!" The Tyrannosaur reached the fence again, sending out another burst of sparks. Some of them landed on the straw and set it smoking. "Don't!" Kelly pushed Troy away from her. T-Rex getting a little jealous. "He's already upset. Don't make it worse." Dave Richter stepped back from Bradshaw's body. Someone else drew a blanket over the mutilated face. "We lost him," Richter said, staring down at the corpse. "Shock, lacerations, massive hemorrhaging." He looked up at Tarosh. "That's a bad death-to-accident ratio, 1-to-1. We can't afford many mistakes like this." "It was a freak occurrence," Tarosh said. "It's gonna happen again," Kelly said, her voice cutting through the muttering of onlookers. "And it's gonna get worse if you keep feeding him this way." "Then we'll take more precautions in the future, Miss Sawyer." "That won't make any difference, Tarosh. Don't you understand? This animal is a predatory carnivore. He was born to hunt live prey. The fact that he's been deep frozen and brought back to life 65 million years after the last of his kind became extinct doesn't change anything. You can't domesticate him like a house cat by feeding him meat." "Most predators scavenge from time to time, don't they, Miss Sawyer? Even in the wild?" "Sure. But why would he bother to scavenge when he has his meat brought to him every day by live prey?" The others glanced down at Bradshaw's mutilated body, which had been hidden from view now by the blood-stained blanket. "Perhaps," Tarosh said, "we could arrange for live seals to be brought into the creature's cage. Would that satisfy his desire for the hunt, Miss Sawyer?" "For a while, but he keeps growing every day. It's going to take more than seals to keep him fed." "Yes, his size is becoming a problem." "You're the only one who wanted to do it this way, Tarosh, forcing his growth rate with high-level radiation and—" "Things will work out, Miss Sawyer. The ice storm seems to be abating. We can gather more seals." Except it's still against the law. If your men start capturing too many seals out in the open, EPA may come over from King George to check up on you after all. Let's hope not, Miss Sawyer. If we're forced to abandon this project because of an outside interference, we'll have to dispose of anyone connected with it, yourself included. He turned to Zalman. Clear the room at once. Everyone? Except Miss Sawyer. I want to stay, Troy said, to help her. Zalman raised his Makarov. You heard him. Get out. Troy started for the door along with the other men. Don't let your boys lose those guns, he said to Tarosh. As the crowd departed, Kelly stepped up to the fence. The Tyrannosaur had drawn back into the cage, fearful of the electrified chain links, which hummed now in the sudden silence. Shut off the power, Kelly said to Zalman. I have my orders. I'm giving you the orders! Shut it off! Zalman threw a switch. The humming stopped. The Tyrannosaur, still wary of the chain link fence, came up to it cautiously, its large head thrust forward, sniffing. After it touched the fence without receiving a shock, once and then again, it looked up at Kelly, opening and closing its formidable blood-smeared jaws. She sighed. Well, which is it? Are you happy to see me, or do you just want to feed on someone else now? The Tyrannosaur opened its jaws and gave out a high-pitched squeak, like the chirping of a gigantic bird. Kelly's eyes misted over. Damn, she whispered.